Billy Butcher is quite possibly the entirety of the main reason for the boys storyline. He is that one significant character that without the boys universe would be completely different. His singular existence has led to almost every bad event that has happened in the boys series and has happened with a lot of the characters' lives. Yes, Homelander is very much at fault for so many of the things that have gone around in this series, but Butcher's actions just kind of usually makes things so much worse. Now, quite a bit ago when I posted my What If Soldier Boy Raised Homelander video, I got a comment talking about if I could do a what if the boys never existed in the universe. So meaning no Hughie, no no Frenchie, no Kamiko, no nobody. And what if they never existed entirely, leading up to just a very big event of all of the things being so much different. Now, after thinking about it for quite a while, I eventually came to the conclusion that, in all fairness, Billy Butcher is the main catalyst for all of their actions. Without him, there is very much of a big situation of not much happening and none of their lives really being in the exact same circle and the exact same atmosphere that Billy had put them into. Their entirety of their story was singularly linked on Billy putting them all together. So if he wasn't there, the story would just end up so much differently. Now, in a world where Butcher never existed, so many things are very, very liable to change. If we just start off from first things first, when we talk about the very big start catalyst for the entirety of the story with Becca, obviously there is not any very singular way to just say, oh yeah, Becca wouldn't be there if Butcher wasn't in her life. But even if we say that, okay, Becca isn't there or somebody isn't there, there is not any real big saying that Homelander still doesn't find somebody the same way that he found Becca, and the exact same circumstances and the exact same situation ends up happening with Homelander having some sort of kid that is very similar to Ryan, whether we just have it be Becca's child the same way or any random woman that Homelander might do the exact same thing that he did to Becca with. This is a very big just thought, in my opinion, because of the singular fact of Homelander probably would be the exact same person up until then because Butcher wasn't a part of his life before that. And everything else that happens afterwards really just wouldn't matter in this specific point for quite a while. Now, when we talk about characters like Frenchie, or any of the people that Butcher met earlier on, their lives are obviously quite a bit differently. Probably ends up still having his family the same way that he does, because I don't really know too much on that specific part of the story. And we could just really assume that he has his family and really is having a very nice life because of the fact that he's not focused on all of this revenge the same way that he would. Yes, we would have like Mallory still doing and nabbling around all of her specific points, which could obviously lead to an exact copy of another boys team with either another head Butcher, but in all fairness, Butcher was just that real person that would be able to lead the group. That I don't really think that she would be able to find somebody to replicate that kind of thought process. There's not really any person that would be like, oh yeah, this is going to be another Butcher. This is going to be another person that is able to rein in so many chaotic people the same way that Butcher was able to. So is probably going to be living his life happily and safe from all of the chaos that revolves around the soup world. Frenchie most likely is either put in jail or has the situation where he's just able to go around freely without any real big problems, just still doing the same things that he normally was doing, being the criminal that he was and just kind of living off in the quiet without anybody knowing exactly who he is and having all of these different aliases the same way that he normally would have. Obviously, if we skip over to somebody like Hughie, there would be a very big situation where we can just talk about the fact that Robin most likely still dies. That's just going to be a situation that's very much inevitable if Homelander is still in the situation because A-Train would still be there and nothing really there would change whatsoever. So Robin's death would be inevitable. I really just see a situation where since Butcher isn't around this time, when Hughie does eventually like get the offer for the 40K, he would still be very reluctant at first because Butcher wasn't there the first time they automatically offered him that money. Because that's the main reason that he figured out that Hughie was even existing, because he refused the money in the first place. But eventually Hughie would end up choosing to take the lump sum of like the 40K or whatever money that was offered due to influence from his father and a lot of other like extenuating circumstances. This would obviously just end up very much easier because Translucent has no reason to come after him, so Translucent actually manages to stay alive and he's never going to be killed in this kind of situation. Alongside of the fact where I still see a possibility of Hughie actually still meeting Starlight in the exact same way, because Butcher wasn't the person that led Hughie to that arc that he was at. Like, Butcher wasn't the person that led Stewie, that led Hughie there. Hughie made it there on his own because he was just like feeling down. So I really just see a situation where Hughie still meets Annie the same way. They still have this little conversation because obviously Annie's going to still have to deal with the Deep the exact same way. And they have their small little conversation and they probably end up meeting again later on, getting to the point where I honestly just see those two still ending up having a relationship, just being it under very different circumstances, where they're able to date for a long period of time without having a situation where either like Homelander or anybody else has any very big problems with Hughie. Hughie's just able to live comfortably and have his own situation fairly well without any very big problem on that end. When it comes to any of the characters that normally would have died because of Butcher being in the situation, with it being a situation where like, oh yeah, the CIA deputy director now doesn't have to deal with Butcher, she ends up living, and there's no reason for Victoria Newman to ever actively just start actively going on that full-on spree that she was going on to, leading a lot of other people and a lot of different things to just be going on, to the point that not many people actually have to die in this situation, at least until a later point in time. If we just honestly like continue on with this plot line, Hughie's probably going to be living a very, very decently comfortable life. He will meet and have a full-on decent relationship with Starlight, as I've already said, and maybe only have minor problems with any other person in the Seven for whatever reason that he would normally have it. I see a situation where Starlight, while at the Believe Festival, has a situation where she speaks her truth. Obviously, this time around, it only being because of the fact that Hughie was there, and a very big situation of there is just like her still feeling the exact same way. Obviously, this time around, Hughie wouldn't have just asked for an invitation to go meet with Ezekiel. So there is never a reason for like her to feel like Hughie was just there to meet him and use her. So they're having like a perfectly fine time, and Hughie just went there to support somebody that he's actually starting to care about. But obviously, that just goes whatever way it feels like going. Homelander and Hughie probably would have a very, very weird relationship because of the fact that Homelander is still Homelander, so there is probably going to be a very big just conflict there, but not being the exact same conflict that they would have originally had, due to the fact of now Hughie's not really a big threat. Hughie would probably gain some confidence because of the fact that yes, he might not have Butcher, but he's still having to deal with all of these supes on a very consistent basis, and he would probably eventually have to learn how to stick up for himself in a very, very well factioned way. But this would also lead to the point that Compound V would never be released to the public. The only reason that it was originally released to the public anyways was because they were so hell-bent on trying to grab A-Train for what he did to Robin. For the singular fact, that was the only reason that A-Train was caught with with Power Claw, and the only singular reason that anybody figured out that he had something that was called Compound V. Without Butcher being so nosy and without Butcher being in the situation to be like Hughie's devil on his shoulder, there is no reason for A-Train to be caught using the Compound V. So Compound V is never released to anybody, and Vought is able to keep that as a secret, and nobody ever figures that secret out unless like another situation possibly potentially happens where it causes Vought or somebody else to figure out that it exists and expose it that way. I honestly just don't see that happening fairly like realistically, if we're being honest, due to that singular fact of, well, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense for somebody else to be able to figure out Compound V exists if Butcher's just not leading the charge, or if no one's looking at Vought the exact same way with that crucifying eye. Obviously, this would very much mean that Homelander never actually like will go looks for somebody like a Becca, or somebody that he might have had relations with 7, 8 years ago that had led to a child on his end. So there is just a very big situation where we have a child of Homelanders that's going to be able to be raised from a very, very young age in the same way that Ryan was raised, like being raised as an actual kid. And once he gets to the point where he's old enough and his powers start developing, Vought would start using him to train him to take out Homelander if Homelander ever becomes too much of a threat. So I see him, like we just call this kid Ryan for an example. I see this version of Ryan being able to live his life very normally until maybe he's like 10 for another couple of years where his powers fully start developing in. And then, boom, training. And due to the fact that he's now had a very nurturing mother from his entire upbringing and his entire childhood, he's not anything like Homelander. He's respectable. He knows what he's doing. He's a true definition of a hero. So years down the line, he's able to take out Homelander because he has all the exact same abilities as him, but he's also way more like obedient in the terms of being a true person. He's not this crybaby. He's not this very big man child in all senses of like Homelander is. Which Homelander would probably still obviously fight him very, very hard, even if he figures out that this is his son, because of the fact of he would most likely just go on a rampage the second he figures out that this kid exists, because he would put one and two together and get the full-on situation that this was somebody that Vought hid from him for a very long time. So people like Stillwater, people like Voyager, and anybody else would be killed after like he figures out that this kid exists. And besides that, like Stillwater, everybody else is able to survive without Homelander ever killing them because of the singular fact of there is no reason. Butcher isn't in her house threatening to kill her, and Homelander being caused and like just being not forced really, but ending up just lasering her straight in the eyes and taking her out that way just to prove that he doesn't really need her. This time Homelander lets her live, and she's still the like running CEO of the entirety of the company, or like the president of the company, like whatever she was, for a very long time, enabling the military contracts, enabling so many other things because there is nobody on the opposing force to stop them. Homelander is truly able to run wild and free, and there is nothing even causing them to go and create people like super terrorists or these very big people the same way that they did. So maybe there's a possibility, since like Compound V doesn't really ever get like actively like spread into the public, that there is obviously no super terrorists or like super villains. So Kamiko might not actually be caught up in the exact same situation, which obviously I can't know for a 100% fact, but there probably would be no reason for them to actively exist. So Kamiko and her brother might actually possibly have a situation where they're able to live their life the same normal way without ever having a situation where they're forced to become supes in the very atrocious manner that they were eventually and originally input into. They're able to live their normal lives, and almost everybody would probably have a decently better life until eventually Homelander starts losing his mind a little bit, because there probably would still be a flight, like a 3-6 incident or whatever number it was, where Homelander lets those people that like just completely go down, and Maeve might have and still might try getting the thing, but a lot of these things are just very big hypotheticals, leading to the point of the very big thing is Homelander doesn't have a big giant target on his back from Butcher, so he's not always having to like feel this very big type of way. And with Translucent alive, with there never being a situation where the Seven needs to gain new members, Stormfront is never introduced into the Seven. There is never a reason for her to be brought into the Seven because the Seven is full. Starlight is very widely loved. A-Train is still there. The Deep is still there. Everybody is perfectly fine. Everybody is not having any very big problems on that end. Black Noir is able to live for however long that he's going to live because of the fact that Soldier Boy is never needing to be brought out for any singular reason. So the Seven remains the Seven. There's never a reason for 6, 5, 4, 3 of them to be taken out or whatever, like just being whittled down in numbers. So Homelander probably never actually meets Stormfront, and even if he did, for any reason whatsoever, there would be no very big reason for him to have the same kind of relationship. Because I honestly like see a big situation where maybe Maeve and him work to like find a way, or realistically not happening. But I really just see a situation for him to not really even have to deal with Stormfront in really any way whatsoever, because she's not needed in the set. She's not this signature piece that people need just so girls get it done. The entirety of the Seven is there. Everybody is perfectly fine. And the only very big thing that's going to kind of lead off to this point would be an end battle between Homelander and his own son, which would most likely leave Homelander dead, taken out of the board because he had probably would go rogue at some point in time. Most likely not leading to the situation of, trying to just Homelander goes on trial, which most likely eventually probably still would, due to this being Homelander. But I just see a situation of the events going in a situation where Homelander doesn't feel as threatened as he normally would. So he never ends up being in that situation where he needs to be forced to go on trial. And since he has no child that is like the reason that he killed the man in the first place, there is never a reason for him to do that. And he tries his hardest to maintain his public image. He tries his hardest to maintain his popularity. He tries his hardest to maintain all of the things that everybody knows about him. So he actually has things to lose. So Homelander is most likely mostly controllable, into the point that eventually he might go out of control. It's a very big high possibility knowing Homelander, but we don't really know. I just see a situation where this Ryan-esque character takes Homelander out, becomes the new #1 hero, or like basically becomes the new head of the Seven, and Vought has a more easily controllable, more well-balanced person as the head of the Seven that's truly acting like a hero instead of being a very deranged-esque hero like Homelander was. So, in all fairness, if Butcher existed, the Boys universe would probably be far of a lot better because of the fact of characters like Victoria Newman. That would be a very sketchy situation. Again, I'm not even gonna hold you, because if Victoria Newman is able to like run free because of the fact that nobody would need their heads popped unless they absolutely need their heads popped, she's easily able to go from running for vice president, probably even taking the presidency, which is a situation I very highly see possible, which could very, very dramatically change the entirety of the course of everything that I've just said, because her being at the top of the like pinnacle of the US would be a very scary sight to see. Her being president would just be one of those things where she possibly could be very good, but it would be one of those situations now the supes are in control. Basically, Stan Edgar is a very big, heavy part in being in control of the entirety of the world, which most likely just doesn't lead to anything good whatsoever. It's not going to lead to any very high hopes for the world. So her being at the helm would just cause a lot more chaos. So I don't know whether it would be like Supes gaining more power or gaining less power, depending on how she wanted to do it, because she was running an anti-Supe fund or like an anti-Supe stance on a lot of different things. So it really just is a situation where I don't know exactly how that part of the story would go, but that really doesn't matter. In all fairness, and no matter what, Butcher not existing changes the entirety of the Boys universe so dramatically because there's not as much chaos running into the world. Homelander is most likely killed by his own son that he would have not known had existed for a long longer than Butcher was able to like hide Ryan even without knowing Ryan existed, because of the fact that there's not a singular person in the world who would go to the same lengths that Butcher went to, I think, hopefully, that would be so deranged enough to try going after Homelander and going after all of the supes in the exact same way. So that's kind of what I think would happen. In a situation like this, the Boys universe is a lot more safe, but a lot more scary in the exact same way. Homelander doesn't have anybody really truly trying to stop him, so he doesn't have as much of a reason to kind of start going rogue and going a little more crazy and having all of these different things be his like reasonings for all of these actions that he does. But please go down in the comment section and tell me what you guys think possibly would have happened if Butcher never existed or was never born. I would like to see what you guys think would happen, and I would love to hear you guys' comments down in the comment section below, but I will see you guys in the next video. If you guys did enjoy this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you guys can get caught up with all of the latest videos, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.